Really quick here before I start, there will be flashing colors in some parts of this video from me using gradients and overlay layers. Be careful and skip this one if you're not sure. Hello, I don't have all that much time this week, so I figured I would draw for you guys again. This is a picture of Soul, and you'll pretty immediately see I'm having an issue with perspective. Perspective is the thing I'm absolutely the weakest at, so what you actually don't see here is all the reference tabs I have open of cats laying down facing the camera. And I can say, even before I'm finished with the sketch here, that I'm never really fully satisfied with this drawing. That said, it does end up taking me somewhere around 5 hours to complete regardless. And part of that, as you'll see, is that I just keep redoing things. I keep erasing things and painting over things until I'm at least okay with the way it looks. I thought Soul would be a fun cat to paint because he's just such a silly looking guy. Not only is he a tortoiseshell, but he's referenced as having 4 completely different colors on him: ginger, black, white, and brown, which from what I understand in real cats is impossible outside of chimeras. But Soul being a chimera has always been an interesting idea anyways. The fact that he has too many colors, being a male tortoiseshell, alongside just general mysterious qualities as a character. That said, we don't need to use genetics or, any sort of realism to explain why a cat has too many colors in warrior cats. Take, for example, how you would translate a warrior cat's color to realism in the first place. Sandstorm is pale ginger, right? So pale ginger is a dilute ginger color. It's a dilute red in cats. And we don't just have pale ginger in warrior cats. We have pale ginger, pale orange, yellow, cream, and you could definitely argue that all of those colors would be translated as, a dilute ginger, a dilute red. So why would warrior cats have, 4 different words for them if they're all supposed to be the same thing? Anyways, aside from his weird colors, the most interesting thing to me about Soul's physical appearance is how he's lion-shaped, being a large cat with a tufted tail and a mane. He's large, intimidating, fluffy, but despite this, he's lazy and manipulative, and he's not at all interested in fighting. He'd rather just have other people do things for him. I'm going to be refreshing myself on the second half of his character as soon as I approach rereading The Forgotten Warrior, for I spoil. And that's going to be soon, I promise. I do wonder if they're planning on ever bringing back his character, though, seeing as The Forgotten Warrior is the last we ever see of him. That said, he's probably rather old by now, with most of the cats who were warriors when he was causing trouble kind of approaching an elder age. Even Lion Blaze is going to be a great-grandpa soon, if he isn't already. What I would do with him is bring him back as an elder, Purdy style. He caused so much trouble for the clans when he was young, I think it would be really funny for him to show up and be like, "I'm old now, please take care of me." I get so into the zone while I'm painting that I don't even realize that I'm making very silly decisions. Like this almost onion-shaped hair tuft on top of Soul's head that I created and never thought to change. I just decided to leave it there. Like he's slicked his hair back and grabbed the top of it with the hair gel. You'll notice that earlier on I used gradients to make the back half of Soul's body kind of darker and the face and the chest area a bit lighter. And this is really partially because I wasn't happy with the perspective that I was going for, so I figured I would try and force it to look like perspective by making the focal points brighter and the non-focal points darker. And this isn't the only time while drawing this that I use a silly trick to try and make it look like the legs are farther away. But I guess I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute or two. I spend a lot of time fiddling with this chest and redrawing it and refluffing it and unfluffing it and trying to put stripes on it and deciding I don't want stripes, but then the stripes turn into more fluff. And that's really because I thought it looked like I was putting too much detail on the chest. especially when those hairs are supposed to be, long and fluffy and not individual short hairs like would be on his head more so. And honestly, I think that the end result still has a lot of detail on the chest, almost a distracting amount of detail on the chest. And I guess I could have gone over it 1 or 2 more times, but then the speed paint would probably be 20 minutes long instead of 14. In retrospect, I could have just deleted the layer I put the stripes on instead of making the stripes into shading and then painting over them again, but I just don't think of things like that while I'm painting. I just keep going and going and going endlessly. I mentioned this last time, but I don't get a lot of time to paint, and I don't really get a lot of time to practice. I'm just always making a new video or working on something or learning something, and hi. Hello. I'm just busy. I'm always doing something, and I'm never finding time to actually practice art. So I hope incorporating more speed paint uploads into my schedule will, 1, give me an excuse and more time to draw, and 2, give me more time in my schedule to experiment and make things more freely that don't always directly connect back to making a video, which is really, really hard. Whenever I think of an activity or a thing to do, I think, okay, but how can I find an excuse to use this on my YouTube channel so I don't waste time I could be using making a video? Oh, you know what's awful? I really like the shading on the tip of that tail, but I am about to trash that entire tail and redraw it. The way it's coming through the fur back there and also on top of the legs looks pretty wrong, so I just trashed the entire tail and parts of the body and redo it entirely. And, despite the whole perspective problem, I do also like those little back feet. I'm glad I didn't have to redraw those. Or, okay, have to is a strong word. I'm glad I didn't make myself redraw those. Yep, there I go. Goodbye tail, goodbye middle section of the body. I just merged everything into one layer and started painting on top of it. As usual, honestly. Which also means I need to go back in and mess with the mane a little bit more. Something I did that I don't usually do here is include a bit from the original art, and that is the squiggly line and white muzzle that leads up to his eye, which I didn't replicate perfectly, but I figure Soul is one of those characters that's actually drawn and represented pretty consistently color-wise throughout the different medias we have, so I figured that, if anything, this is the one cat whose official art is somewhat canon. That said, even though it's kind of important that his initial figure, his initial stance, resembles a lion, none of his official art gives him the mane, and none of his official art gives him the tail. That is, excluding the Warrior Cat's website version of him. And additionally, he appears on the new reprinted cover of Eclipse, and he does not look like a tortoiseshell cat. He looks like he's orange, like he's Firestar on the cover of the new Eclipse, which is kind of, I do wonder if it's the new artist's habit of overpowering the whole scene with one color lighting so you can't tell which colors the cats are, or if it has more to do with the fact that he just had no idea what color the cat was to begin with. I'm imagining a situation where all he remembers is that the cat on the cover is named Soul, and he goes, ah yes, Soul is a ginger cat. I will draw a ginger cat, and that's how we got the new Eclipse cover. Soul means sun, you see, so he must be orange. Just when it seems like I might be finishing up, I just drop a whole bunch more shading on there. I couldn't help it. I wasn't really, fully satisfied with the way it looked, so I figured, why not just add a whole bunch more, everything until it looks a way that I think is presentable. My big problem is really that I want the front of the cat to look like it's actually, closer, and the back of the cat and the cat's back legs to look like it's farther away. Again, I'm pretty darn bad at this. So what I'm doing is, trying to use tricks in the shading by making that area look darker and the front look brighter, but I'm also, trying to smooth out the back here and make it fuller so it looks like it's actually coming from the front of the cat. And at this point, I feel like there's nothing I could possibly do, and then I go, wait, not everything I draw needs to be an animal on a solid color background. Maybe I can do a few more evil little tricks to make it actually look correct. And that's when I start building a background behind Soul. Not a super duper detailed background, just, something so that I can slip a couple plants in between his legs and his tail so that I can tell you, hey, the tail is closer and the legs are farther away. Honestly, I regret not planning out this background a little more, and I kind of regret not doing a little bit more on the background in general, because it looks pretty plain. It's not that much more detailed than a background in one of my short videos. I mean, it's got a little bit more effort, but it's not really standing out for that reason. So I look at the background and go, oh yeah, that's a little lazy. Maybe it would have been better off without it. But then I see that I put plants in between the feet and the tail, and I go, no, it's not better off without it. I needed those plants there. I desperately needed those plants. I like to paint chunky tree bark. I wish there was a fandom for drawing tree bark that I could join so that I can hone my tree bark drawing skills instead. Plants and environments are just honestly really enjoyable because you can't really make them look wrong in the same way you can make a figure of an animal look wrong, You can really just twist anything in any which way, and it's never really gonna look particularly uncanny valley compared to a cat or a person. I've got lots of environment brushes, but in the end I really just ended up using the one for the stars and not the one for the leaves and the bushes, even though they kind of looked better than the ones that I painted on top of them after I put them down. I feel like if I've painted the entire cat, but then I use environment brushes for the background, sometimes it just looks a little off, like they don't belong in the same picture anymore. And here's the plant I keep going on about. I chose to draw some wood sorrel, not because it has anything to do with Soul, but because I like wood sorrel and I like eating it off the ground. You know what? I'm going to look up the flower meaning of wood sorrel, and I'm going to come back to you and see if it has anything to do with Soul. Hold on one second. So according to A to Z Flowers, I'm sure this is a really good reference for this specific thing. The symbolism behind wood sorrel is joy and good-heartedness, which I think has absolutely nothing to do with Soul. Sorry, everyone. Because I decided this is a scene that is now taking place in some sort of environment, I took Soul's eyes and made them big. Just staring at you. Huge, humongous eyes. And by eyes, I mean pupils. I'm just talking about the pupils. And after just a little bit more fiddling with the lighting to make him look like he belongs here, and a couple color adjustments using multiply and overlay layers, I am done with this Soul. He is free. Seeing as I'm planning on doing these a little bit more regularly, I have opened a channel in my Patreon server, so if you are a patron, you can go to the Cats to Draw channel in the Useful section and type in the name of your favorite cat so that they're on my list. It honestly took me so long to decide that the cat I wanted to do next was Soul that I figured I'd just let other people choose for me from now on. And there's Soul. I hope you had fun watching me draw like 300 tufts of fur.